everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be bringing you a tag video, and this is the BooktubeBooker Book Tag, and this was created by the Poptimist, and I will leave his channel linked down below in the description. I was very kindly tagged by the wonderful Harriet Rosie, who will also be linked down below, and I find the idea behind this tag so interesting. It's kind of a booktube alternative to the big literary prizes, and I think you can tell which one in particular by the name of the tag. The tag creator is going to be compiling all of the data from the books chosen for the particular categories of this tag, and just, I don't know, he's going to do something with the data. So the idea is to find the most popular books on BookTube in specific categories for the year of 2018. Two things. First thing, my answers might change by the end of 2018. There are a few months left. Second thing, some people are only answering these questions with books that were published in 2018, and that will probably lead to better data if they were all books that were published in 2018, but I read a lot of backlisted books, so I ain't gonna do that. Anyways, that's enough of an explanation. The first category is your favourite fiction book of the year so far. And I think I'm going to go for Almost Love by Louise O'Neill. You guys know that I absolutely love Louise O'Neill. I think she is amazing. I read this book as soon as it came out, which is actually pretty unusual for me, and I absolutely devoured it. It's one of the books that has had the most profound, touching, emotional impact on me in the history of my entire reading life. This book saw into my most intimate thoughts and put them on the page, and I was like, rude, I should not feel so seen. This is about a protagonist named Sarah who is in a relationship with a man named Oisin, and there are a lot of problems in that relationship. But as we delve into Sarah's past and see her relationship with a much older man, we begin to understand why Sarah behaves in the way that she does. I think so many different kinds of people could find value in this book, but in particular, if you are a woman who has been in a relationship or almost been in a relationship with a very shitty man, then you will enjoy this book. Moving on, we have the best non-fiction book of the year, and for this I'm going to go for This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This was a book that I read in one single day. It is a book about the NHS in Great Britain. It is about the pressure that is put on junior doctors, and this book is a collection of Adam Kay's diary entries. He is no longer a doctor, and this book does build up to finding out why he decided to leave the NHS. I was shocked at so many moments in this book at the awful circumstances that NHS workers have to go through and the incredible things that they have to do. I had a huge amount of respect for the NHS already, but after reading this book, so much more. And actually the day after I read this book, I had to go to hospital, and it was kind of serious, and the juxtaposition of those two events, going into hospital and reading that book, it was just made it all the more touching. This book is also extremely funny though. Adam Kay has since gone on to work in comedy, and he has an incredibly funny turn of phrase. He has a brilliant way of finding the humour in very difficult situations, and I think if that humour wasn't there, it would just be too difficult to read this book. I just think it's fantastically done, and I would recommend it to anyone and everyone. Next up is your favourite debut novel of the year, and this isn't a book that came out in 2018, but I do feel like this question is one of those ones that does lend itself to a book published this year, but I wouldn't be truthful if I picked a debut that was published in 2018. The best debut that I read in 2018 was Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. This is a book that champions intersectional feminism. There are characters from so many different kinds of backgrounds, with different ethnicities, with different gender identities and sexualities. It is about a young Latina girl who is trying to find her way in her new college life. She is learning so much about the different kinds of people around her, and what I really loved about this book was that it emphasised that it was okay to be slightly confused by different terminology for instance, for people's sexualities. It's okay to be confused by those things and find it slightly overwhelming. I think Gabby Rivera is a fantastic author. I think this is a fantastic debut novel, and I'm definitely going to read anything else that she puts out there. Next is your favourite poetry collection or short story collection. Now, I read a fair amount of both of these, so I'm going to go for one for each. My favourite poetry collection of the year so far is A Recipe for Sorcery by Vanessa Kisuul. I think it's the only book that I'm going to talk about today in this tag that I actually still have a physical copy with me. This is published by Burning Eye Books, which is one of my absolute favourite poetry publishers. I really enjoy everything they put out there, but I especially loved A Recipe for Sorcery. I think Vanessa Kisuul is one of the best poets writing at the moment. I think she's absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really excited to see what she does next. A few of the poems that I particularly enjoyed from this collection include We Don't Do Beyonce, Cunnilingus, and Whore. And there are just a lot of poems in there about womanhood, female experiences, but particularly those experienced by Black women. This has definitely got a spoken word slant to it, which is something that I really enjoy in poetry as well. And I think if you are a fan of poets like Kate Tempest, then this is a great one for you to go to next. My favourite short story collection of the year so far is New World Fairy Tales by Cassandra Parkin, which is a collection of fairy tale retellings with modern twists. It's very rare that I read a short story collection, and I love absolutely every story in it, but that was the case with this one. I particularly enjoyed the retelling of The Three Little Pigs, which is actually a story about racial tensions in America. It's a lot of fun to read these stories and try and work out which fairy tales they are about. That Three Little Pigs one is quite obvious, but some of the other ones are slightly more elusive or obscure, and I really enjoyed figuring out which fairy tale was which short story. It's fantastically written as well. If you're someone who enjoys fairy tales and fairy tale retellings, then this is one that I would really recommend, and it's such a short one as well. I think it's under 150 pages, so you could very easily read it in one day. Next is your favourite work in translation, and I went through my Goodreads, and there is only one book that I've read this year that is translated, so that's a bit of a shame. I should probably do something to rectify that. But the one translated work that I read was Snobs, Dogs and Scobies by Elizabeth O'Hara, and this was originally published under the title Herlamabach, and it was originally written and published in Irish. I read this back in March for the Irish Readathon, and I really enjoyed it. It is a book about three teenagers who are setting themselves up to sit the Leaving Cert, which is the big nationwide exams that people do when they're roughly 18 in their final year of school in Ireland. These three seem like an unlikely pair of friends, but their lives do become intertwined. Just a lovely story of friendship. It has some darker moments in it as well that really pulls the friendships together. I'd actually really like to read more work that is translated from Irish. Maybe that's something I can make a priority for next year's Irish Readathon. Next is your favourite comic or graphic novel that you've read in 2018. I've not read all that many comics and graphic novels this year. I probably should start utilising my library a little bit more for those, but one that I did read and enjoy was called Limited Edition. I cannot remember the name of the author, but I will leave it down below in the description. This was a lovely little story about a woman who worked as a midwife, and it was about her relationship with her work. It was about her navigating her romantic relationships. It was about her developing her own self-confidence and self-assurance. Think if Bridget Jones was a midwife and in a graphic novel, and you'd probably end up with this one. It had this really gorgeous yellow colour palette as well, which is something that I really like. I've been thinking about this recently, and I've realised that I really like yellow on books because yellow isn't a colour that I can incorporate into my wardrobe because it just doesn't go like with my skin tone whatsoever. So I'm really drawn to it in books because I can't make use of it in clothing. Next up is your favourite book cover, and I'm gonna have to go for another Louise O'Neill book. I'm gonna have to go for The Surface Breaks. This is a YA feminist retelling of The Little Mermaid, and the cover is gorgeous. It has such nice foiling on it. It has such a nice combination of colours. I just absolutely love this cover. I loved taking photographs of it for Instagram. I just think it's a superbly published book. Next is your favourite author of 2018, and I think the author of the year for me, and I don't think this will change by the end of the year because I'm only going to read more of her books, is Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I have read 3 Taylor Jenkins Reid books so far, and I haven't picked up The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo yet, which is, you know, the one that she's super famous for and everyone gives 5 stars to. I've dived into her back catalogue first, so I have read After I Do, Forever Interrupted, and Maybe in Another Life. I kind of describe these books as literary romances. Like, they are romance stories, but they play with ideas that are quite literary. It sounds like I'm trying to like justify reading a romance novel. They're books about relationships and they're fucking great. I genuinely think that Taylor Jenkins Reid's novels have helped me through one of the toughest periods of my life, and I will be forever grateful to her for that. Next is your favourite booktube video, and there were a few videos that popped into my head when I read this question, but I think ultimately I'm gonna go for actually a series of videos by Rose Reeds. She basically turned her master's dissertation into a series of, I think it was 3 videos, and her dissertation and these videos was all about starving girls in Victorian literature. So she takes quite an in-depth look at this subject, and I love literary criticism about the Victorian period. Like, when I did my undergrad in English literature, when I was studying Victorian novels, that was when I was in my absolute element. I loved it. That, combined with the fact it's a subject matter, starving girls, that I'm very much interested in, and the fact that Rose presented these videos so well, it's definitely one of the most memorable videos, or memorable 3 videos of 2018 for me. And the final question is your favourite new booktuber. Now, this can be someone that has just started making videos in 2018 or someone who was new to you, but I'm going to go for Read with Cindy. Now, she's blowing up a little bit at the moment. She's doing very well for herself, and it is very well deserved. When I subscribed to her channel only like a few days ago, I found myself scrolling through her old videos and watching them all because I'm obsessed. You know when you like see someone on the internet and you're like, I feel like we could be friends. I just love Cindy's personality so much, and she made a video recently that was something like the basic bitch booktube newbie tag or something like that, and that would be very close up there with my favourite booktube videos of the year. I thought it was utterly fantastic. Anyways, those are all the questions in this tag. Once again, thank you to Harriet for tagging me. I'm literally so bad at thinking of people to tag in videos. I'm gonna say that I've tagged some people down in the description, but who knows? I might not do that. Anyways, that's all I'm going to talk about today. Let's have a little chat in the comments if you have any thoughts on anything that I've said in this video. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you next time.